Phil, thanks for joining me. How are you?
Very good, yeah? Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Look,
Good.
You do a lot of talking about coaches and players, so I thought we'd have a little chat about you. That's what people want to do, if you're all right with that.
I'm fine with that, but can you edit it to make me look interesting, funny, you know?
We don't need to do that.
Just edit it, yeah?
Well, I've done my research, but it doesn't take a lot to tell this. Newcastle fan growing up?
Yeah, big Newcastle fan, yeah. Was going from the 1980s, some Gascoigne beers, these players coming through, and then I had a season ticket from 1990 till 2015 when I started here.
Wow, so who were your heroes growing up, those ones that you mentioned there?
I was a bit young in those days. Most of the time when I was really young, we were rubbish. We being Newcastle in this context, not we being Brentford, but maybe both, I don't know. Something for me to say, but no, it was only in the early 90s when they started to get players like Andy Cole coming through, and then my all-time favourite player was Ferdinand, which is ironic because he does my job now, just down the road at QPR. So
your rivals now.
Yeah, exactly. So rivals, but also it's good to see him at the games and stuff like that. So I never thought, all those years ago that would be the case now.
Yeah. And did you play as well?
Oh, at a really bad level. As a kid, you always dream about, I'm going to be 16. I'll probably play for Newcastle.
More Guy March.
Yeah, no.
More Guy March than Ferdinand.
Yeah, maybe, but he played in the World Cup, so I think that maybe I'll be stretching it a little bit still.
So was that the dream as a young kid? You wanted to be a footballer, pretty much everyone else?
Yeah, most kids, football or rock star was all football all the way. So it was just probably most people look at you saying, wasting your time playing football and reading about football and going to all the matches and all the rest of it. But yeah, it was probably useful in the end, doing all that stuff. But I was never ever going to be any good.
So then we fast forward, the opportunity comes up to work for Brentford, because obviously you've been doing stuff before with Matthew.
Yeah.
Was that just, no hesitation?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't like kind of a moment in time, like a point at which somebody came to me and said, oh, do you want to work for Brentford? It was more because the people I was working with were people who were also directors of the club, and Matthew obviously. I just slowly started to get more involved with certain things, outside of, just things like asking, well, what do you think? What do you think we should do here? What do you think we should do there? Do you want to come and speak to this person? Can you go and have a conversation there? I got Mark Woolman invite me and have a conversation with the players, back in the season the championship season when he was in charge, which I did, and it was enjoyable and stuff. So I just sort of slowly got myself immersed more and more.
Because I think you've got the best job in football.
You think?
I think you've got one of the best jobs in the world.
Okay, well, do you want to try on transfer deadline night when you're trying to do a deal, and we'll see about that.
Well, because I think maybe I've got the wrong. From the outside looking in, it's almost like you've got the fun parts of Championship Manager and Football Manager. You don't have to worry so much about the tactics. You can just do the fun transfers.
The day-to-day, I don't have to worry about that. I mean, it's not. But director of football, you're known as that's probably what you're known for, is buying, selling the players. That's when you pop up and I'll do an interview at the end of the window and say, we try to do this and that, and we failed to sign him, and we failed to sign him. But actually, most of the time is spent not on transfers. Most of the time is spent working with the staff who were at the club. So obviously Thomas, but also people like Chris Haslam, who's the head of performance, or Neil Gregg, head of medical, or Luke Stockford, head of analysis, or Lee Dykes, head of recruitment, or Lisa, or secretary, or whatever. It's actually working with those people and making sure that mine and Rasmus's most important job is to make sure that we have really good people working throughout the club and the particular football department. That's the most important thing. It's not just players; it's also the off-field stuff. So 80% of the year is spent more on that and working on planning and strategy and what do we need to improve, not just buy better players, but and that's the enjoyable bit, because you work with good people, right?
So that's the enjoyable bit. What's the hardest bit?
The hardest bit is probably the transfer window right at the end, when it gets stressful, when you're trying to get a player in or you do a deal or whatever. I've had situations where we've been sat in Griffin Park and the window closes at 11 p.m. on whatever night it was, or Thursday night, or whatever it was, and you're sitting there with 5 minutes to go, and you've got an agent on the phone, and he's trying to get some paperwork through, and he's shouting, and he's sending you as a photograph, and I'm shouting on the phone going, I don't want a photograph, you've got to scan it. And the player's sat in a hotel somewhere in the Czech Republic, and he's like, I don't know how to use the printer, I'm in a hotel. I'm like,
they're the bits that we don't see, that you imagine don't have. You think it's just so smooth.
Yeah, they're like, I'm like, I try and I like to think I'm a calm person. Some people might disagree most of the time. But then when you're sort of having to shout at people, say, will you get this scanned into the computer and send it now, or you're going to miss the deadline? And then we missed the deadline by 17 seconds, so no one knows this, right? It just we missed deadlines both for players, and you just forget it, whatever. And I was at Griffin Park at 1 a.m. trying to unpick that. Did we hit the deadline? Did we not hit the deadline? And then we missed it on a player. And then I'm on the phone with Rasmus, like, Rasmus, we missed it, and I ended up shouting at this agent, and he's like, yeah, well, he's one of the biggest agents in Europe or whatever, and I'm like, oh, well, he's just got the thick end of my
One of the biggest agents in Europe, but can't use a scanner.
Oh, well, it's because the player was on international duty, right? So he was in a team hotel somewhere, and so he was trying to work out how to use the scanner or printer to send over a contract, which we missed the deadline. So, and actually, well, all's well that ends well. Yeah. No big deal. Move on.
I know you've got a lot of people that watch football for you and scouts, but how much football do you watch a week, would you say?
Less than I probably did, if only because I'm so immersed in it. Like, just sitting and putting on a random game is just like less appealing.
Yeah.
Even like Newcastle, obviously, were my big team. Obviously, Brentford now is the most important. Maybe I'll go back to Newcastle one day long term. But even then, when they're playing, I'm not like, it's on the telly, I must sit and watch it. I just try and, you've got to take yourself out of it as well a little bit, I think.
Do you watch it differently? Because I think, having worked in football and stuff now, I watch games even differently, and I don't watch it. I'll still watch it as a fan, but if it's not my team, I'm always thinking of like content-y things and things like that. So do you do the same?
I'm less concerned about content, to be honest with you. You can stick with that, but yeah, it's mostly through my because before I came here, I was working with Matthew in what he's done previously, which is obviously in sports betting, and you kind of learn when you're doing that there's a whole load of random stuff going on, and so you're trying to like kind of just forget all the random stuff and focus on what actually means something. And also you get very used when you're in betting to good goals right at the end of games being really great for you or really killing you, in terms of like, and so you kind of get numbed a little bit by these kind of last minute swings. It's just it is what it is, right? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So you sort of lose a little bit of that kind of emotional side of it. It sort of gets a little bit more kind of you just understand that sometimes it goes for you and sometimes it doesn't, and try not to get too swayed by that in terms of your thinking, which I think is good in this role as well, because you don't want to, the last thing you want to be doing is after a game or whatever going and changing room and being completely emotional about whatever's happened about the result. I try and go in there and be totally objective about it, whatever's happened,
And do you have to do the same with players, for example, because we've all got our favourite players, but they're not necessarily the best players or the right fit for teams. So do you have to sometimes go, right, that's Phil Giles, the fan there, let's leave that there?
Yeah, so when you look at players, I try not to look at players and sort of try and work out what's good for us. I try and leave that to the staff. I have an idea of what I think is right, but what I've learned over time is that a good player can be a really bad player in the wrong team. So we could buy some players who look like good players and put them in our system the way we like to play, and it could be different to a player who maybe would go into Leeds, be really good in the Leeds team because Bielsa's looking for, he plays man-to-man all over the pitch. He's looking for that high energy, high work rate, and we look for that, but we play in a different way. So there's good players, and then there's good players in the right system. And perhaps over the years we've tried to bring out the best of players because they've been playing in the right system for them, and understand what to do, and that's made them look their best.
That seems to be something that you see with managers and players so often, that you'll see, well, this manager's got all those players at their disposal, why aren't they winning? Yeah. And I guess that's why, is it because they're not being bought with specific roles in mind, they're just being bought, well, that person scored 30 goals in Serie A, so he'll do that now here. Yeah,
you see that a lot, like players looking over from overseas and coming to this country and maybe not playing the same way and not having that adaptation period, and then they go, you think, they're hopeless, they're no good, and then they go to Spain and someone like Diego Forlan, for example, he comes into Man United and they're like, well, is he quite a Man United player or whatever, and then he goes into Spain, he smashes in a load of goals and he's playing in World Cups, and you think he's a good player actually, isn't he? Not to say that he didn't do well for Man United, but going back years, John Dahl Thomason was a Newcastle player, he came in very young and was played out of position because he was basically number 10. He should have been playing behind the striker, but Alan Shearer had done his ankle pre-season one year, and he ended up playing as a number 9 out and out striker as a kid, basically. He was about 20, 21, coming from Dutch football, which is totally different to English football anyway, and he's got to adapt to Premier League football as a young kid, so it didn't really work for him, and I think at the end of that season he ends up leaving. And I think now is he the all-time Danish record goal scorer, played for Milan, won Champions League and all the rest of it, and you just think, well, maybe given a bit more time, playing in his correct role, given and building a team around him, he could have been more effective had he had a bit more time. But that's something we try and give the players here is time. It takes time. You see that all the time. You see Sam Annie playing Bristol City tonight. just needs games. He needs to get in the team, get a momentum into this game. Play 6, 7, 8 games. It's difficult now, team, because we've got so many good players, right? But when you see that, pretty confident that you start seeing the real player come out.
I can tell you're too rational to be a fan anymore. I can tell as a fan I'm nowhere near as rational as you. So when you're in the pub with your mates and they're maybe being a bit more emotional like I am, will you sometimes bite your tongue and go, or will you actually say, actually, think about this? Because if I was, I'd like to be hearing this stuff. If I was saying something that was absolutely outrageous after a few pints that was just ridiculous.
Well, I'd just tell you shut up. Would be no rationality about it. I'd probably had a few pints as well. It'd be a punch up probably. but yeah, I try to, but equally, like, there's also an element which is about opinions as well. Like, you know, Rasmus and I won't sit there and agree about something. We'll sit there and say, no, I think this. I think we need this player. I think we need this player. I think we need this type of player. And we'll see what everyone else thinks as well. So it's not like kind of I can sit there somehow like superior saying, well, hang on, I work as a in football, I know better than you. No, like, everyone's got their opinion.
It's interesting you mentioned Rasmus. I was going to ask about that. How often do you two fall out over players?
we never fall out. I tell you what, we always have a constructive, healthy debate, disagreement. I think that's actually quite good as well, that we will disagree constructively with all the other stuff as well. Like, and demonstrate that what we want to see from everyone is healthy debate and constructive opinions, and then demonstrate a way to kind of reach a collective opinion at the end that we all buy into. I think that's a really powerful thing. So that's what we try and do in practice. And the other thing which is quite helpful, I think, having two directors of football and not one, is when we buy a player, normally one of us will lead on that player and be involved with negotiating with the player, with the club, and try and complete the deal. And the other one's a little bit more maybe on the sidelines, maybe working on another project. And it's very easy to get emotionally invested in that player because you've worked so hard on it, and you get towards the end of a deadline and you just think, oh, it's only, you know, if we just spend another 500k, we get this done, and, like, you know, you desperately want to get it done, but sometimes it needs another person, and Matthew would also be that person as well to say, it's just going, you know, no, stop, you know, this is not the right deal right now. We should perhaps go for this player or this player. So that's really healthy that, like, you know, we've got two people. If you get two people doing the job who get along well and can constructively critique each other, that's a healthier outcome, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And obviously we've just come at the end of a window. A lot of people probably think, right, that's you, job done, feet up, see you in the summer, but you've already said you've got a hell of a lot more to be doing.
Yeah, and I do a few bits with Matthew outside of Brentford as well, which I can focus on outside the window. But no, we'll sit down now, probably next week, with myself, Rasmus, Lee Dykes, and we'll have a thought about what do we need for the summer, what's happening. I've already went through the end of the window. I'll go through all of our contracts, who's coming up, who's out in the summer, who's got 1 year to go out the summer, who's got 2 years. Do we want to look again at offering contracts and things? So you're always kind of planning ahead to say, like, you know, what do we need to do next? What do we need to do next? And thinking ahead, and that's vital. We won't be feet up for 3 months, and then I'll see you in the summer again. That's for sure.
I was going to say, do you get a break? It sounds like you're never off.
No, not really. Actually, next week I think I'm going to be homeschooling, so I might do a bit of that. But yeah, no, it's if you enjoy what you're doing, then it's like, you know, it's all good.
Yeah.
You know, there's no problem there. You have to kind of live it as well. Like, otherwise, if it becomes a job, then you can't have a weekend off, can you, when you're watching football?
No.
So yeah, but that's I think it's a healthy obsession.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Phil. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.